That was as bad as it could possibly get for Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. As the New York Liberty had them in hell, they had CC in shackles. Just a great performance from the Liberty, as you can see, holding Clark to the worst numbers that she's ever had. And my first takeaway is how good a team the Liberty are. I mean, that needs to be abundantly clear. I actually took my daughter, Ronnie, to the Barclays Center. There is me and Ronnie at the game. I was a little wary of going because of the Fever's schedule, which I'll get to in a second, and knowing it was probably going to be a flat performance on a back-to-back. But I wanted my daughter to experience, seeing Caitlin Clark in her rookie season, as well as this great New York Liberty team. Because, it's not just Brianna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu. Like, Jonquel Jones is a legitimate baller. And they got talent up and down that entire lineup. Lainey Hamilton, they're just so long and athletic, and they could throw bodies at you, which they did to Caitlin Clark. They were picking her up full court at times. They were going after her in the half court, but in a good way, in a good competitive spirit. I'm going to try and shut you down way, which is fine, right? Like, that is competition. That is hoops. That is basketball. And they had a bunch of awesome plays and really were just so much better than the Fever. But a couple of things. First of all, quick criticism of Clark specifically. Very early in that game, she got a chance to put up a floater, and she didn't know what to do. She kind of got put in no man's land, no woman's land, and just flung the ball up like a floater at the basket. When she gets that floater, it is really going to expand her game the way she plays. Then there were a couple other weird moments from the Fever in this one. A couple times, Erica Wheeler wouldn't get Clark the ball in transition. As much as they were being shut down in the half court, in order for Caitlin to really excel, she's got to get the ball on the move some of these times. And Wheeler didn't give it up in transition at times. And there was another play where Caitlin was kind of trapped and nobody moved to get open. Now, Clark also played her worst game in her WNBA career by far. Really didn't have much of an impact on the game at all, and kept shooting bricks up, probably because she had tired legs, because the WNBA schedule served the Fever up on a platter to the Liberty in this one. 11 games in 20 days, back-to-back, having played in Indy, then going to New York to play a team of this caliber that's familiar with you, and that's also motivated, because of all the talk about what happened with Kennedy Carter and the physical thing and all that. A lot of these women do want to send a message in the sense of, you're not just going to come in here and it's going to be your league and you're going to dominate. And that they hear this hype around Caitlin Clark. I'm speaking from what I'm assuming in a sense, analyzing the situation. I'm not saying, I'm not speaking for any individual player or saying this is the truth for everybody. But anytime the hype can get that heavy, people want to make an example of it. I mean, it happened to the Miami Heat would get the best effort from everybody when LeBron first went there. Stuff like that. That can of course happen. And one thing about the whole discourse back and forth after the cheap shot from Carter on Clark, and everybody lost their mind since and made it about everything other than what it really is sometimes, I think. So much talk about race. I don't think it has anything to do with that, really. Like, I don't think Clark's success is race. I think it's how dynamic a player she is. I don't think people are out to get her because she's white on the court. Like, I think it's the hype in a sense. And one thing I could see rubbing women the wrong way, having digested this for a couple days, is the idea that, you should be thanking her because she did all these things and is bringing all this money in, which is true. She is bringing all this money in, and it's a great thing for the league. But, nobody's going to want to bow at the altar. And then because of the money that's being brought in, they're put on this ridiculous schedule that no one could play through. Like, it's not Clark's fault she didn't have legs, didn't shoot the ball well. It's almost impossible for her to play well in those circumstances, having not even been 2 months removed from playing for Iowa, playing those 11 games in 20 days, which is 2 more than anybody else in the WNBA, almost twice as many as the champion Las Vegas Aces, having traveled, getting the other team's best shot. That's just a tough spot to be in. And I hope she's not hurt. That's my biggest fear after that game. I saw sort of what happened. Here's some footage of Clark grasping at her jaw and ear area. It's turned sideways here, but you could see it. Caitlin Clark had something. She's got something going on there, and she's motioning with her hand towards it, and I saw what I think it was. What happened? Like Clark ran into another huge screen. She ran into another huge screen, and that's when I think it happened. I think nobody called it out for her, and she ate it. And shortly thereafter, I saw her talking on the sidelines and making those motions as if something had gone on. And then she finally left for the locker room. But her being in at that point in the game is questionable also, right? It's questionable also the fact that she's even playing at that point in time, that late in the game. Christy Sides, the head coach of the Indiana Fever, was asked about that. Get that up for you real quick. Here's what Sides said about Clark and Aaliyah Boston, who was also injured, being in the game so late.
Put Aaliyah and Caitlin back in, and then they had to come right back out. And obviously, injuries like that can be unforeseen. But what was the reasoning for putting them back in so late and when the game was at hand?
Yeah, they wanted to fight. I mean, they wanted to get in that game and try to make up. Try to get the game closer than it was. Like they have pride too. I mean, they wanted to get in there and keep fighting. So that was the reason.
Was there a dialogue between you, either of them, whether maybe that wasn't the best idea or you know
They just no dialogue. I mean, we just kept fighting. They were fighting until we decided that was that Aaliyah got hurt and then Caitlin as well. But we were trying to find ways to put the ball in the hole.
That that is an absolutely terrible answer on a number of levels from Christy Sides. Number one, because how does she know what they wanted if they didn't talk about it? Like that follow-up question is interesting. But just saying people want to fight is not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough. Especially because the only acceptable answer to that question, why they were in the game that late in the fourth, is a lot of people wanted to see Caitlin Clark. People paid money to go see Caitlin Clark. Myself and my daughter went there. We wanted to see the Liberty too, but we went there to see. We picked this game, right? I picked this game because of Caitlin Clark. That's a reasonable answer. That's a logical answer. From a pro for the actual Indiana Fever basketball team, there was no way she should have been in that game. And who cares if she wanted to keep fighting? The game was out of hand. And you've already played all these games. That's just a rough answer all around from Christy's sides. The good thing for the Fever is they finally get a break. They finally get a breather. Hopefully everyone's healthy and that checks out, because it has been a tough start to the season. And it gets no tougher than that, than playing all those games that close together and taking on a New York Liberty team who surely digested the headlines too over that 24-hour period and wanted to come out and put on the best show that they could, which they did at the Barclays Center.